Genesis 33. We've been going over this now for a couple of weeks, looking at from stairway to altar, kind of what we've seen is a dramatic change here in the life of Jacob, and how he's really become dependent on God because of the situations and the circumstances he's had to deal with. It's forced him to become dependent, first of all, and God has done that by allowing those things to happen to him. But he's also come to a realization that things aren't going to work out if he doesn't become reliant on God. And we've seen him through chapter 29 up to chapter 32. Really come to that realization through spending 20 years there with Laban. Laban always changing stuff on him, but him continuing to be faithful. God blessing him because of that. Him starting to head back towards back toward the promised land as well, back to his homeland. And God wrestling with him and showing him, breaking him down some more essentially, breaking down his pride a little bit more, and making him even more and more reliant on him, and him seeing the importance of that. Then we get to chapter 33, and we have like 4 or 5 chapters here. Jacob is doing a bunch of really good stuff, right? He's just really being a good, solid saint here. We get to chapter, into 32 and on into chapter 33, he's back, and Esau's still there. And Esau is looming over him, and he's worried because last time he saw Esau threatened to kill him. Moved him pretty good, and it's the point of killing him because he was stealing the birthright and blessing from him. And we see up into, as we finish up with last week in chapter 32, that Jacob was trying to figure out ways to make sure that Esau didn't kill him and his family. He split his company up into 2 different groups, so not all of them would be killed. He sent gifts and things out to Esau to try to appease him. And finally, after a long night of wrestling with the angel of the Lord, Jacob comes into the realization that weak man who could do nothing without the Lord. And then we get into chapter 33, and now that God has physically and spiritually both whipped him, right? We see him then protecting Jacob from Esau. So let's read the first 3 verses. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children, that's Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the 2 handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. Right, so now the time has come, right? Jacob and Esau are officially, after 20 years now, are going to be reunited and see each other again. And in Jacob's mind, still back there somewhere, I'm sure, he's thinking of this huge fight they're probably getting ready to get into. So Esau goes out to meet Jacob, and you see in verse 1, he takes 400 men with him. Jacob's there, and he sees Esau and his 400 men coming at him. What in the world am I going to do? Right? What's going to happen? Because, of course, he feared Esau. So what he does in verses 1, 2, and 3, he takes his household, and he arranges it in a very specific way. And he arranges it in a way in such that the ones that he loved the most would be at the back of the line and would be protected. Okay, the last one. So he takes his handmaids, his servants, and their children. It's a gruesome idea if you think about it, but he puts them out in front because they're not as close to him, and he's not as loved as much of him as his other children are. And he places them in the front, and he takes Leah and her children, puts them second in line. And finally, he puts Rachel and Joseph third in line. But what we do see, though, is that Jacob is not cowering behind all his family, right? We see him walking out in front of all of them and to meet Esau. And with the courtesy here that we see him bowing down 7 times. It's a customary thing that people did to kings or rulers, really, really important people during this time. So Jacob is showing Esau that he is a really, really important person. Esau is in Jacob's eyes, giving him respect and bowing to him 7 times. Again, customary thing here when meeting a ruler or a king. So we see that event happening, and this was like sometimes I'm reading these things and going through them, I like to envision him as a TV show or a movie, painting to Jacob, and you see him doing all this stuff. The camera kind of pans over to Esau. Music, what's Esau going to do? Read verse 4. And Esau ran to meet him. So Jacob's there bowing down, and Esau takes off on a dead sprint right at him. And I'm sure Jacob's eyes are kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Oh no, what's he going to do? Is he going to punch me in the face? Is he going to drop me out of the air? What's going to happen here? And we see that he runs to meet him and does what? Grabs a hold of him and hugs him. He's glad to see brother, right? It's been 20 years. He's happy to see his brother, his twin brother at that. So he embraced him, fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they both wept. Okay? He lifted up his eyes, verse 5, and saw the women and children and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. So Esau, as he sees him here, is probably just flooded with probably even a surprise to Esau. All of these emotions that he has when he sees his brother Jacob for the first time in 20 years. And it's just overwhelming him when he meets with Jacob. Something here has happened in his heart, right? Last time we saw Esau, he was a bitter, angry man, full of rage and fury, ready to kill Jacob. Something had taken place in his heart. And we're not going to give Esau the credit for it. We're not even going to give Jacob the credit for it. We're going to give God the credit for it. God did something in Esau's heart that caused him to react the way that he did. They kissed each other, they cried, they hugged. The old resentments, the old bitterness that he had, all of it vanished, right? He and Jacob here were completely reconciled. They're brothers, twin brothers, just like they always had been growing up. So now we kind of see that happening here. What thoughts do you think are going through Jacob's mind here about this situation and about God hearing this? What's going through Jacob's mind during all this? About both Esau and God. Not at all he expected, right? We know that. We tell what he was preparing for. Completely surprised, in shock, full of emotions as well. What do you think he's thinking about God here? That God's been what to him? Gracious, right? Gracious and good. God's been gracious and good to him. And treating him with patience and showing him his love and patience and compassion. This is another lesson that God is teaching Jacob here in this situation. Right? This is another example. It's a physical example of God intervening in the life of Jacob. And Jacob realizes that and sees the importance of that as well. Jacob, up to this point, he had tried to buy forgiveness from Esau with gifts. He tried to get Esau's favor with bowing down to him there and showing him his reverence and doing all the things he did. But forgiveness and love can't be purchased. Right? There's no price you can put on forgiveness and love. And having already received grace from Esau here, Jacob asked Esau to receive the gifts that he had previously given him because God here had dealt graciously with Jacob. So verse 6. The handmaidens came near and their children, and they bowed themselves, and Leah also her children came near and bowed themselves, and after came Joseph near Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this stroke which I have met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother, keep that thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if I now have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God. Now please, take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. Jacob is urging him to take these gifts because the way in which God has dealt with Jacob. And at first we see Esau saying, I don't need these things. I have enough of my own. Refuse the gifts. The gifts could have been, his refusal of the gifts can be construed, if you look at a couple of commentaries, kind of an unwillingness for Esau to fully reconcile with Jacob. But it was more of a, I don't need this, I'm just glad you're here type of a denial, right? If you know it's okay, I'm just glad you're back. But eventually, of course, we see him accepting the gifts, and that shows full and total demonstration here that he has completely and entirely forgiven Jacob. That they buried the hatchet, there's no more hard feelings or anything of the sort. Verse 12, and he said, let us take our journey, let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me, and if men shall overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over his servant, and I will lead on softly according as the cattle goeth before me, and the children be able to endure till I come unto my Lord unto Seir. And Esau said, let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, what need is it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made him booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalom, which is the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. And he came from Padan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of the field, where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it Elohi Israel. So Jacob and Esau eventually here agreed to go separate ways, since the family and herds with young that Jacob had don't travel as quickly as people who have soldiers. So Esau had 400 soldiers there, and Jacob had a lot of young kids and cattle. So they decided to go both separate ways. Jacob goes to Succoth and then to Shechem, where he camps out in front of the city. We see him towards the end of the chapter here buying a piece of land. And for the first time here, he owned some of the land that God had promised to he, his father, and their heirs. Right? He has actual physical possession of the land God had promised him. The purchasing of the land here is a testimony in his confidence in the Abrahamic covenant that God had given him. He builds an altar there in Shechem and calls the altar El Elohi Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. And this name, Israel, refers back to Jacob, making this very altar very, 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 very personal. So we see Jacob here fulfilling the vow that he made to God. Jacob told God back in chapter 28, he brought him safely back to the promised land, that he would know that God was his God, and the name of the altar there that he uses declares that. So he's making good here on the vow that he had told God back a couple chapters ago, displaying again Jacob's confidence that God, the living true God, was in fact his God. Okay, and that finishes us up with chapter 3, and with lesson 11. So from stairway to altar, we see the effects of God's presence in our lives here. And Jacob learns of God's presence. Go up there in Genesis 28. Israel worshipped his God. So we see Jacob's ladder initially, at the beginning of this. We see him at the end of this, his name being changed, of course, to Israel, and actually worshiping his God, not just acknowledging the presence of God that is there. Okay? And the effects that we should be able to tell if God has a presence in our life. We have a sensitivity to sin, first of all. We depend on God for our strength and direction, have a desire to know and to follow God's will, and we communicate with God often. So those are all expressions of having God dealing intimately within our lives. Right? So the caveat to that is, the lesson is, if you don't have these things, right? If you don't have a desire to follow after God's will, if you aren't aren't having daily and often communication with Him. And if you don't have a sensitivity to sin, then the presence of God, you're more like initial Jacob and not like Israel. Right? So there's some corrections and some things that need to be taken care of in our lives. That's the case. All right, so responding to God's plan here, the overall theme for this lesson is living in response to God's presence with you. Go ahead and jump in this. Landon, go ahead and go to chapter, reverse lesson. There it is, 12. It's a word. And what lesson 12 does, it jumps through chapters 34 and 35. Okay? And if you, it's just the way that this book did it. And it was just to make, the reason is so they can make this fit into 13 lessons, which is kind of the way all these things are. But in Genesis 34 and 35, what they do, 34 kind of continues to show how Jacob's faith grows as a result of the events that have taken place in the last 4 or 5 chapters here in Jacob's lives. God especially directs Jacob to build an altar in Bethel in chapter 35, because Bethel was the place. Why is Bethel important in Jacob's life? Why is Bethel such a big deal to Jacob? And that's the first time he showed up, right? It's the first time he kind of reveals himself, appears to Jacob. So that was the first time he kind of appeared to Jacob. This is Jacob's ladder there in Bethel. And Jacob, mentioning God's presence with him as important to him during these pretty distressful days. Chapter 35 as well has a lot of Bubba beget Bubba, right, as Pastor Rob likes to say. And kind of talks about some of the generations. But it gets us to, so that's what's in 35 and 36, and that's why the book goes over it. 35 is continuing to tell more about Jacob's life and blessing. 36 is kind of the generations. But it gets over to chapter 37, which is what our next lesson is about. And we're going to start this day because I have time. And we get to talk about Joseph, who is personally one of my favorite biblical characters. And we know the story of Joseph very, very well, obviously. But we get to see some of the characteristics of Joseph here, starting in verse 37. We're going to just do the first 11 verses, just the first part of this today, and kind of talk about some of the hard times here of Jacob's oldest son, Joseph. Now, Jacob's oldest sons, envied Joseph, right? They didn't like him. At the very first opportunity they wanted to get rid of Joseph, right? Any way they could. Sold him into slavery. His masters, of course, in turn, sold him to Potiphar, the high-ranking official military officer there in Egypt. And we see Joseph faring well there until he was falsely accused of committing adultery with Potiphar's wife. Of course, we know this, or actually, not adultery, but rape, sorry. Potiphar's wife, and him being in prison, and Joseph continuing to be faithful in prison. We know the hard times here in the life of Joseph. So let's look at a couple of those today. Now, most of you have been in the situation that Haley and I are in now, of raising little ones. And if I had a board up here, and I put the following categories, right? One of these 3 things you can pick from: bedtime, meals, or activities. Now, back when you were raising your little ones, if you have, or if you had little nieces or nephews, or whatever the case may be, if you had the chance to control, if you had the chance as a child, to control your life in each one of these categories. So back when you were a little one, if you had the chance as a child to control each one of these categories: bedtimes, meals, and activities, which one and what would you have chosen to do? You could choose your own bedtime, choose your own meals when you were little, choose your own activities. What were some of the things you would have chosen to do? Bottom map, and then you think of Pippa. Pippa had her choice for breakfast, dinner, lunch, snacks, bedtime snacks. She would have chicken nuggets, butterflies, which are French fries, and juice. all the time. That's all she'd ever eat. Now, that'd be good if the only thing Pippa ever ate was chicken nuggets, butterflies, and juice. No, it wouldn't. It's not good for her, right? She can have that sometimes. She can't have it all the time. If Pippa could pick her own bedtime, there would be no bedtime. It would just be party all the time, all night long. Okay? And she, of course, that's not good for her. If Pippa could pick her own activities, it would be outside playing in the mud all the time, completely stark naked. If that's what she likes to do. But it's not good for her, especially now in the cold. I think the same thing for us. When we were kids, if we get things back, things we would have picked, things we would have liked. Our parents limited those things because it was not good for us, right? It wasn't good for us to go outside and play with no coat on, or not have a hat on when our head was wet, or just to eat candy, or to never sleep, or never take a nap. And we know the repercussions now, if we were allowed to just kind of run wild as children, the repercussions it would have on us now, right? So as a child, circumstances that our parents, and the same thing that we're putting our kids through, that are just simply for their own good. Sometimes maybe going to question the fact that we love them or not, but it's for their own good. Going to the doctor and getting shots. Don't like it, kids don't like it, but we know that it's good for them. Making them eat their vegetables, making them eat their fruits, and making them go to bed on time, making sure we're brushing our teeth. Those are all things that we make sure we're making our kids do, and that our parents made us do, because we understood the importance of how it was good for us. Now, as children, we don't have the maturity or the understanding all the time to decide what's best for ourselves. We don't. We needed parents and other older people who have had experiences to guide and direct us. Even now, right, at 31, raising these two girls, sometimes me and Haley have no idea what's going on. We're able to ask older people who have been in this situation, certain instances where we can go back on the instances in our own lives in which mom and dad made us do things at the time we didn't really like, but now we see the importance of it and we express those same things onto our kids. As we mature and we continue to get older, we're going to learn to trust our parents and follow their directions more and more and more. As I get older, the smarter my dad gets. I think that will probably be the case for all of us who have parents who are still alive. And the older I get, the things Dad was teaching me when I was little, I didn't like it, maybe understand it, but I get older, I understand that he's a pretty smart fella, right? He's experienced and known a lot of things. That's the case for all of us. And as the girls get older, now when they're 14 and 15 and 16, mom and dad are going to be dum-dums, not know what's going on. But as they get older, they're going to understand that the lessons are good for them. Same thing here, right? Joseph had a lot of reasons when he was young. Think about Joseph. I said all that to say this. Joseph had a lot of reasons when he was young to question God. At a young age, he gets sold into slavery, thrown into Egypt. He doesn't know, was doing everything he was supposed to do with Potiphar, gets accused of rape, thrown in jail. This is all when Joseph was a very, very young man. So he has plenty of reasons to question on how God's directing his life. Now, we know what God was doing in Joseph's life because we can read ahead and we know the story and how it worked out. But if you think about Joseph at 13 or 14 going through the stuff he was going through, he didn't have the luxury of knowing that there was a means to this end, right? There's a payoff at the end of all this. Sometimes we too don't completely understand what's going on in our lives, but God just simply wants us, even if we don't understand, just to simply trust, right? Just to simply trust Him regardless of the circumstances. So let's go to chapter 37. And let's read the first 11 verses here. And let's see Joseph being hated. As Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was his son, Bilhah, and the wife, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wife. And Joseph brought to his father in his report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, And lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaf stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream, Lord, and behold, the sun and moon, and 11 stars, in obedience to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. So, we evidently here, or at the age of, I said 13 or 14, at the age of 17, Joseph, we see here tending to the flocks with his half-brothers, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And he was there and observed his brother's conduct. And you see, went running back and told Dad kind of some of the bad stuff that they did. Okay? It's all the evil, verse 3 or verse 2, and back to the father to record it. Now, perhaps the recording, the misconduct reporting that Joseph did here boosted his stock in his dad Jacob's thinking. But we know that the other end of that, his brothers didn't like the fact he was telling him on what they were doing. At any rate, Jacob, of course, we see and know, loved Joseph and loved him by giving him a richly ornamented tunic. And Joseph, of course, the firstborn of Rachel, who Jacob loved more than Leah. So see verse 3, Now Israel loved Joseph more than all the children because he was the son of Jacob, and made him a coat of many colors. So Joseph would be the obvious son for Jacob to love the most because it comes from Rachel, his first and true love. But giving Joseph this tunic here, this coat of many colors, as a symbol of his special and love that he had for him, was not necessarily doing Joseph any favors with his brothers. In fact, we know that his brothers hated him and refused, verse 4, at the end of it, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. They couldn't even talk to him. They hated him so much and hated him so greatly. And as bad as the relationship had become between Joseph and his brothers, it got even worse when Joseph here has these two dreams, and for whatever reason, Joseph just simply couldn't keep these things to himself. He had to tell his father and his brothers what was going on. Of course, we know the dreams, and we read the dreams. The first one essentially included them bowing down to Joseph. They were acting like sheaves and barley. And the second one as well, them also bowing down, including the sun and the stars and the moon and stuff bowing down. When Joseph told the second dream, his father kind of rebuked him and said, Joseph, probably ought to keep it to yourself. Probably not thinking you can tell these brothers who don't like you anyways. Jacob's, rebuke here to Joseph, really kind of an angry protest. Don't get me saying this stuff. Jacob was not happy with Joseph's second dream, but he did think about it later on. Kind of wonders we saw at the end of verse 11 there, kind of what the world is a dream might mean. Those dreams would sustain Joseph in all the difficult experiences that he would pass through until they were fulfilled. So we see these dreams showing up here in chapter 37. And why do we see them so early? And why this is here, right? It's because this is a big deal for Joseph in his own mind. Because he's going to kind of think back to these instances when he's going through these difficult circumstances. God has revealed these dreams to him and showed him these dreams, kind of setting him up as a fallback that he could think to as he's kind of dealing with some pretty difficult times in the next couple years that are coming in his life. And those would be kind of a place he would fall back to. Now the brothers were mean to Joseph. His father was unduly harsh to him during this time. And from Joseph's perspective, probably really didn't think he deserved any of this. He couldn't help. It wasn't Joseph's fault that Rachel had him. It wasn't Joseph's fault that Rachel was the one that Jacob truly loved, and that Rachel was his father's favorite. It wasn't Joseph's fault that God was revealing these dreams to him as well. It wasn't Joseph's fault that God was kind of setting Joseph up for this plan, eventually becoming a pretty high in power there in Egypt. And it wasn't Joseph's fault for the future greatness that God was setting him up for. So Joseph, he was just there, right? He was just experiencing these things, the 17-year-old kid. And he probably didn't think he deserved the treatment that he was getting. Nonetheless, he was being treated pretty poorly, as we will continue to see as we do this morning next week, as Joseph being sold into slavery. We continue to look through this lesson and the next, the life of Joseph and the experiences, how we can say a lot of things about Joseph. But the most, I would think, if Joseph was standing here with us today, the one thing he would want us to say is that about his life. Joseph, you went through a bunch of experiences. You went from the very bottom to the very top, saw a lot of things. You saw God intimately filling his life out in the circumstances. What's the one thing you can say about your life? I think Joseph would say that he was faithful. He just remained faithful. And that's kind of what we're going to be continuing to look at. Because as we move into the book of Exodus and see some of the events that take place there, it is important for us to remember to remain faithful to God because of the way in which he treats and takes care of Joseph and some of the things that happen to the people of Israel in the book of Exodus when they're not being faithful because of his will. Okay, so let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the lesson today. And we will continue to see the life of Jacob and the moving on of Joseph and how you just continue to orchestrate. It's really kind of amazing. The sovereignty that you have, how this plan that you set forth. Use these people to make sure that the plan that you had set in motion follow through and how you bless them for being faithful as well. And continue to teach them lessons even in the midst of them, Jacob especially, in the midst of them not being real good. Continuing to be patient with them and show them love and compassion. We would a couple times too, and having to correct them, but continuing to make sure that they understood the importance of having them in life. The importance of being following, being faithful